Something I should add to the Mac is some stream elements overlay. So I can see next time someone is raiding or following or whatever. Just gonna fix the stream elements overlay. Yeah, this is good. Copy the link. Hey, subject. Is that a fox? Pop Nemo. Just gonna add a overlay, stream overlay. So we can get some notifications how the optimization is going. Yeah, so this morning I started doing some dividing it up into chunks, but it's work in progress. Let's see here, browser stream elements overlay, we can call it. Okay. I think this overlay technology is pretty cool. So now let's try it, like a follower event. And that works, yeah. Cool. Oh, this is not connected. What? There we go. Yeah, so I started splitting it into to chunks. I noticed that actually, So why is this? Oh, like the slow point is actually not necessarily creating the cubes every frame, like this generate new squares from position, because we're only doing it when there's something new to create, right? The thing that takes time seems to be the packaging of the mesh, the repackaging. That's the time intensive thing. So I'm thinking about, and I guess that's what chunking is about. Hey Speed, what's up? Speed Boost boy. Everything is good with me. How are you doing? Are you having a good Saturday? So I think this is what takes time, and I think I need to split them down into smaller chunks. So that's what I'm doing now. So there will be multiple meshes. Instead of just one big mesh. And that's going to lead to some interesting problems, like the mapping. Here earlier when I tried to figure out how to know which mesh, or like which chunk I'm in. But I think one interesting thing will be the mapping, because now if we take a face, a triangle, and we want to move it down, you're having a nice relaxing Saturday as per usual. That sounds awesome. Then we could find the neighboring triangles and vertices to move within the same mesh. But now on the border between the meshes, we're gonna have to make like cross mesh joins. So I think we need to extend the hash map that contains the list of vertices with the same position. But I think that should be doable. So what I'm doing now specifically is taking this function and figure out what are the chunks in scope to view based on where we are standing. So we give the player position and then like get chunks in scope, and then we generate them. And then we'll keep track of which ones we've generated and not. So that's where I left off before I started the stream. Your brain is barely working and you're understanding only 30% of what I'm saying. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not explaining it perfectly, but I think it will make sense as I do it. Oh yeah, what was the problem in the first place? That's a very good question. So the problem in the first place is the mesh, I think, is too big. So as we move now, every time, as you remember, like the mesh will expand and become bigger and bigger, but then like the whole mesh will be regenerated. So you see now the FPS is 60, that's good. But as soon as I move and the mesh has to be regenerated, it's gonna start, you see it lags on every point where it adds new meshes. It like lags, so it's not performant at all. Goes down to like 7 FPS. But in this area, like if I just move around in an area where I've already been, it's fine because then the mesh doesn't have to be regenerated. But as soon as it has, it lags. And I think it's because the mesh is too big. So I need to, my approach here will be to just break it down into multiple meshes, like chunks. that's the plan. Yeah, the whole mesh is regenerated every time currently. Yeah. So you see here on the process, on every frame, we will generate new squares from position. And generate new squares from position. I actually optimized this one so that like it's not going to regenerate any squares that it already has generated. Or like it's not going to add them to the terrain if they're already there. And so we're actually keeping track now in this function, like have we added any new squares? Because like if we're just standing in the same position, we're not going to add anything new. So new squares added false. And if it loops through everything and doesn't add anything, if this stays false, we're not gonna package or like repackage the mesh. But if we added something, we do that. And that's why you saw this, like it like got stuck every unit of movement because it has to regenerate the full mesh. If I remove this altogether, it's gonna repackage everything on every frame. And then the FPS is like 7. So yeah, let's get this list back. So chunks, get chunk, generate chunk, generate new squares for position. Yeah, generate chunk. What should a chunk be here? Get the chunks, then we generate them. I don't really have the data structure in my mind yet. But let's give back like vector 2s for now. That would be good. Look at me now. So chunks. Append. Vector 2. X. C. We probably want to keep track of chunks like something like this. I'll just write this down as a placeholder for the data structure. So probably want to have a dictionary for chunks to generate. Let's call it like a queue. Chunks that have been generated. No, that are, let's call it like are active. Chunks to remove queue. And then we can just add new chunks to the queue, generate them, add them as active. And this should be, chunks to generate should be the gap between chunks in scope and active chunks. And this should be opposite of chunks to generate. So this is like some set arithmetics, possibly. How's it going for you, Jet Fighter? With your project? Nothing new, okay. Let's write some pseudocode here in process. So we want to do something like for chunk in chunks to be chunks to generate new squares for position from position this should be something else. Generate chunk. Yeah, that's what we need. Generate chunk. And then we do chunk.x. Chunk.y. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a y. If it's a vector 2. Chunks to generate. Let's put it up here. Chunks to generate in the global scope. Generate. You decided? You have to decide if you want to draw sprites, which is kind of easy, or generate them procedurally. Would need to write Python script for that or something. The weird crisis of not being able to tell what you want and how you want to do it. Everything feels unsatisfactory. Do you mean project-wise? Like you don't know where you want the project to go? Where you're like having problem deciding where you want the project to go next? Active chunks. No, wait a minute. Active chunks. Or we just do more like how you want to do it, which instruments to use. Got it. Yeah, maybe just keep looking. Or do something and then you can change it later if you want to. But what are your options? Like, what are you deciding between? I wish the screen was touch. It would make it so much easier to paint. Or that I had some kind of paint tool on the desktop here that moved whatever I paint over to the screen. It's not satisfactory to paint with a... I mean, it's even worse. Like now I'm just using a mouse pad. I think we only need chunks in scope. No, chunks in scope and active chunks. And then we can just use set arithmetics to figure out what to delete and what to add. Chunks in scope. Yo, Morgan, what's up? Happy Saturday. How are you? Nice coding skills you showed me earlier. That was creative. It's really nice. Morgan is learning some Python. I didn't. Okay, I'm looking through more details of your code now, and it's like, how old are you? And if you're 50 is below your age, so if you're older than 50, it's like, oh my god, you're antique. You built a simple calculator as well. Nice. I'm impressed. And you're using PyCharm, I see. So how did you figure out how to build this as you did it? Did you follow some guide or something? Or how did you find it? Can we do set chunks in scope active chunks? So if that would be, what do we need to generate? It's active. So this is active set, and this is the scope set. Scope, we need to take to find what we need to generate, which is this area here. We need to take, is it active minus scope? Or is it scope minus active? Can leave simple beam of light, triangle of light, can recreate how it should look in graphic editor. Can simulate, calculate how it actually should scatter. Last thing could be done with shaders or do it with Python. Okay. Can you remind me, what tool are you using? Like, are you using a game engine? Or something like that? I don't remember. Godot, okay. So how would you do it with Python? So Morgan, you watched the video on YouTube? Talked about the simple terminology or whatever. The integers, strings, functions. Nice. The basics. And you just experimented. Perfect. That's the way to go. And just build something to get a feel for what you can do. And that's exactly what you did. Perfect. You would just generate a static picture with Python. Got it, got it. So you're building up some light, and it's the sprite of the light that you want to get right. Is that it? Right now, I don't know what to do though. The math questions are easy, but all the stuff on lead code is way too hard. Is it? I've actually, to be honest, not used lead code, so I don't know how difficult this stuff is. No. Is this it? Yeah, it must be. Developer. But don't they have like different difficulty levels? Yeah, you started today. Good. Yeah, of course. But they have different difficulty levels. But otherwise, I would say maybe try Code Academy. I think that's a good place to start. That's where I learned. Or they might have something good on Khan Academy as well. Programming. Intro to Computer Science, Python. Try this. Do they have... Oh, there's no execution though, but I guess you could... There's like no editor in the browser, but I guess you could try this. In general, Khan Academy is great, as you know I've said before. The easy problems are not that easy. Okay, yeah, maybe. You need to practice some more. I don't know why I can't copy a link into the chat. Here we go. And this is Khan Academy. It's also good. Or Code Academy, I mean. Okay, so yet you're saying it's like a cone of light from a flashlight, but it's actually from an ion thruster. Oh, so it should behave a bit differently then. What's an ion thruster? Sounds like something in space. Ion thruster creates a cloud of positive ions from a neutral gas by ionizing it to extract some electrons from its atoms. Oh, so it has like a... It behaves differently. It's more like a beam. Cool. Hmm. Set chunks to generate. Let's see if we can do sets. Set. Not set get. Set. Set data structure. Dummy value like null. Okay, so we don't have sets. So I can't do minus set and so on. That's unfortunate. Yeah, we have to do in instead. So for every chunks in scope, we have to check if it's in the active chunks. Yeah. In chunks in scope. If chunk in active chunks. If not chunk in active chunks, then we need to add it. So then we do generate chunk. And then the other way around. So for everything in scope, no, we need to do active chunks actually. From the other direction, because we wouldn't be able to find anything that needs to be removed just by looping through the chunks in scope. We need to do for chunk in, so let's just do like call this out and say add new chunks as required, remove invalidate, remove irrelevant chunks. For chunk in active chunks, if not chunk in chunks in scope. These are like each other's opposites. If the active chunk is not in scope, then inactivate chunk, chunk.x, chunk.y. Func inactivate chunk, func. It's like a made-up language. Chunk.y. Oops. Generate chunk. Chunk x chunk z. Oh, of course it's going to be chunk x. And I think probably we might want to add the meshes we create to we need references to them somewhere so we can delete them. Chunks in scope equals get chunks in scope. Let's try this out and see what happens and then just build it up from there. See next is get chunks in scope. In position.x player position.z. What's wrong? So now it's gonna go and all of these are gonna return true. It's gonna do generate chunk. And then that is generate square for position. I think this might actually work, but we're gonna have to change the underlying data structure a tiny bit. Unable to iterate on object of type nil. Wait, chunks in scope, get chunks in scope. Yes, because we're not returning anything. Return chunks. Whoa. Oh. This looks weird. Very weird. Oh, wait. At least something happened. Why are they overlapping though? Let's give some more reasonable. Okay, chunk size is small, but then we have generation bound distance. So I think get chunk, generate chunk. When we do generate from position, yeah, generation bound distance. This is gonna be chunk size. I think. That's the problem. That's why they're overlapping. Let's create a new function for that. For chunk. Chunk size -1. So for example, now when we have 5, this is -2. So when I go from -1, so 5 minus 1 divided by 2. that's where we want to start. Minus chunk. Probably don't want to do that calculation more than once, by the way. So let's do it up here. Var range from is minus chunk size minus 1 divided by 2. Bar range 2, it's gonna be 2, but it has to be 3 because it's exclusive and not inclusive. So it's up and not including the 3. So that means we don't, wait a minute. We have to do plus 1 instead. 5 plus 1 divided by 2. Yeah. Chunk size plus 1 divided by 2. X in range. Range from, range to. Range 2. Integer division. No, but it has to be integer anyway. It's not going to turn into a float if chunk size is a uneven number. And what's going on here? Then we did plus center minus. And what was X? Oh, that's X center. Oh, right. We need to bring in X center in the equation. And then the only thing we have to do then is do X times scale here. And then set, just improving the code a bit here from how it used to work. So this is all gonna be from the plus no, let's do it here. Plus X center plus X center. So if we start at 0, it's just going to do plus 0. But if we start at, what would be the next center? Oh. So if this would be like 0, 1, then the next center is going to be at 2, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Next center is going to be 3. So we would want to add 3 to shift everything up. So that -1 becomes 2, 1 becomes 4, and so on. So yeah, we add it on. Plus X center, plus X center. And then we do plus Z center. Plus Z center. Hey Sleepy, what's up? And Gamer Boy, how are you guys doing? And then we can... You're doing good. Good to hear, good to hear. Then we can just set timescale. This whole thing has square been generated. We should ignore now because we want to do the same check, but for chunks, I think. Let's remove it. Wait, so we need to move in everything here. If we delete this. Do you have a question about the tutorial? Sure. Oh, really, Morgan? That's so smart. You ask ChatGPT what level you're at in programming, and it gives you some interesting problems to practice on. That's a really smart way of using ChatGPT. Nice. Do you have a question? Let's check your question. 1 second, I'm just not sure what will open up if I open the Discord. Oh yeah, it's the... it's all right. You like making OpenGL applications in games? Cool. Right, so you have a mesh on the screen. Oh, you're also checking the FPS. Nice. If you need a packed vector 3 for normals. New plane mesh to add it to the terrain. I think you can. Yeah, by the way, Sleepy Mushroom, I checked your YouTube channel. I saw you had some OpenGL thing of like a cube. You wrote it in C or something. Yeah, there is something called Surface Tool. I used it a bit as well. Yes, if you want to do normals, you would need to do it through a packed vector 3. Like this, yes. And then you add normals to it. That's what I do, I think. In package somewhere, package mesh, I add them here. Terrain.normals. but I don't use the surface tool. I tried it, but I don't remember now why I didn't pick it up, but I don't think I needed it. That's why. I got what I need just from the mesh data tool. And yeah, like to answer your question, I think you definitely can. I think you should be able to do that. It's just about replacing. Like I see the tutorial, like it's not perfect to begin with. Let's be honest about that, since I'm also learning this stuff. But it's more suggesting a way of thinking about generating like a procedural world. Maybe can serve as some inspiration or like a starting point. But then the thing about it is it gives you a tool to your toolbox that you can use however you want in creative ways. And I think replacing the boxes it uses with a plane mesh should definitely work. You can do whatever you want. So Magen, it writes perfect code. It kind of makes you not want to learn. You can just use a bot for writing code in the future. Yeah, I totally get that. And who knows where that's gonna be in a few years. I don't think anyone knows. It's difficult to say like what humans' role will be when it comes to coding in the future, or what humans' roles will be in regards to a lot of things in the future. But I still like learning stuff and like building stuff and doing stuff, so I'll keep doing that. And try to use AI as like a tool to make me build stuff faster and better. All right, so back to generate new squares for chunk. We can remove this as well if new square is added. We're just gonna call this when it needs to be called. Noise for square, vector count. Isn't the vector count always the same? When you create vertices for a square. Yeah, it's always going to be 6. But I like this better actually than just a magic number. Now I know why there were so many trees overlapping. It's because these chunks were overlapping. Register cube generation at coordinate. We don't need to do that either. And for now, let's just do package mesh. We're gonna have to separate these out. Oh, wait. Now I mixed. projects or functions here. There we go. Register cube generation. I don't want to touch this one yet. Right, let's see what happens now if we play this. ChatGPT writes perfect code. It looks too good. Too big. Why is it generating such a big world now? Get chunks in scope. It doesn't generate anything there. Chunk in chunks in scope. Generate chunk. Inactivate chunk. Doesn't do anything yet. Generate new squares for chunk. Times chunk size divided by 2. Wait. It's an uneven number. I don't think this is where the problem lies, but in your own trade, it does, yeah. It's good though. I haven't used Gemini for coding, but I think Google Gemini seems very promising. Their new version. That chatbot. I asked it, you can send it pictures. So I asked it to like analyze a piece of art. And it was pretty good. Like it was actually seeing what was in the picture and it could describe it. That's crazy to me. It's amazing. I think I will start using a bit more variables here because there's so much going on that I'm kind of forgetting what everything is. Like, why do I do chunk size divided by 2 here? Let's just give it a chunk. Okay, but then this function is redundant. So let's just do generate new squares for chunk instead. No, we just call this generate. Let's just call this generate chunk. One more thing. Sleepy, is there a way to call a random function from another node? Oh, you mean like to call a function in a script from another node? Yeah, you can. So I'm doing that on the player. So on the player script, I'm calling things in the world, the world generator script. So you see here on the player, world generator. So we are accessing it like this, var world generator, setting it in the globals of the player. And then we just do get node like that. So get node, and this is just going up 2 steps in the directory tree, and then picking the world generator. And then we can access this node and the script by this variable. So that happens below here. I do world generator dot set vertex color, for example. And there is a function in here. There should be. I don't remember it, to be honest, but there should be one called set. No, what? There isn't? Maybe I'm not using add highlight to. Okay, I think I've removed that. Probably. Let's find a better example. Okay, yeah, another one. Here's a better example. So world generator that get vertices at xc. I think that one exists in here. At xc, yeah. So from player, then I can call this function in world generator and which accesses the vertex map that I have. So like a data structure on the world generator. So you can definitely communicate and like access assets between the nodes. That's possible. It's fun how sometimes you're just blown away with how real LLMs are, how they are smart, creative, and like understand stuff. Yeah, and then the next day you just see how it beep boop behaves like a stupid robot. Yeah. Totally agree. It's like an illusion. Sometimes you get tricked by it, and then the next day it's like, oh, by the way, I shouldn't trust this at all. Always need to confirm and verify what it's saying. But what I liked about Gemini, let me bring it up. Let me bring it up. And what it did is actually, it gives you sources. So let's say, can you tell me about the most useful data structures available in Python and their pros and cons? So I think it will give sources now. Okay, it didn't show drafts. Listen.
Python offers a variety of built-in data structures.
That's also cool that you can do that. Can you provide sources, please? Oh, okay. I mean, it gives you links at least. That's good. But where was it? There was one thing I asked it, and it actually gave. Oh, you never even tried it. Yeah, this is the one that I asked it. I'm like, what do you see in this picture? Oh, it's really small, but yeah, here. So I sent it this screenshot from my cell phone. A painting of Jean-Pierre Ugart, French painter, which is really stunning. I really like this. And then it goes on to say, like, the image you sent me is a screenshot of a Reddit post showcasing a painting by Jean-Pierre Ugart. The painting itself is a landscape scene featuring a massive waterfall cascading down a cliff into a body of water below. The style is dreamlike and surrealistic, with the waterfall appearing to defy gravity as it flows upwards in some areas. Yeah, just think that's very, it's like mind-blowing, I think. Okay, I didn't find any examples here actually where it gives you documentation. What's impressive in this response? It's a good question. I think just the fact that it can see that this is a Reddit post, I think that's pretty cool. And it can see that there's a waterfall. It can figure out that this is by Jean-Pierre Ugart. Okay, maybe reading text is not that mind-blowing anymore. But I just think it's, yeah, the multimodality. It just can combine different facts and like put it together. I think that's super impressive. But then I asked it here. Let's say smoothing. And here, though, this is a good example of what you said earlier. Like, I was blown away by that. And then I tried it on something else that I thought, okay, how can I remove the rough edges in this procedurally generated 3D box world in Godot? Like the rough edges. I didn't really express it well, but what I meant was, I don't want this to be a box world. I want this to be like a smooth world, what I'm building now. And you see this thing up in the corner? Something that came up on my Windows computer, like press Alt-C to use GeForce Experience. The only thing it does then is it says that. The image says press Alt-C to use GeForce Experience. Doesn't mention anything about Godot. So then it was like, didn't get it at all. And it didn't base its answer off of my image. Just what I said. It's like, okay, but here are some ways to remove rough edges. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think it's interesting to just try the different tools out there, like try Gemini, try ChatGPT, find what works for you. I also think Bing, which I think is GPT-4, but I'm not entirely sure. It's good as well. I think it's more up to date from what I've understood. Has more recent data. So it's better for like Godot 4, for example. Right, let's jump back into the code. Chunk X. Chunk. You would need a function for chunk X center to get the center of a chunk. Okay. Mistral is pretty good for code plus free. Okay. Nice, I should try it. Litt stund til, bare. Oh, is it open source? Oh, okay. La Plate. Okay, so this is some. I'll try it out. They have open source LLMs. Okay, nice. Get. Set center equals get chunk center position. I feel like I'm overcomplicating this now. These chunks are more difficult than I at first expected. I just want to get this to work and then I'll refactor it a bit and make it simple. Chunk coordinate. Right, so I think this is the last tool we need. So if we then have chunk 1, it's gonna be the center here. If it's a chunk size of 3, then the center position of 0 is gonna be 0. The center position of 1, like chunk position 1 to the north, or in let's call this the x-axis, the center is going to be 3. So it is, we just do times chunk size, I think. X or C times chunk size. Var. This should be good. Should generate the chunks, it should get the center positions, add it to the terrain. Doesn't even do any packaging though. Oh, I know now why the world is so big. It's because we do the generate new squares from position even here. When we're loading the game. Let's remove that for now. And then we're gonna generate the world as we spawn the player. But that could be fine. No. Oops. Yeah, because now we didn't generate. We don't package it. So let's do that. Package mesh. Oh, look. It actually kind of works. Just pops up a new chunk as we get closer. Nice. That's cool. It's still not performant, but it seems to actually do what we want. I think it's going to become a lot more performant when we do add this to active chunks. Chunks.append. Chunk. Yeah, look at that. Nice. This is cool. Yeah, nice. This is much, much better. Now we are still using one big mesh though. So I think it's still gonna be quite problematic if we scale this up to be this, by the way, generation bound distance. I think we can delete that. We don't need it anymore. What we care about now is the chunk size. If we make the chunk size into, we're always gonna have 9 chunks. Earlier, like 100 was what we tried, and that was painful. Let's do like 33 then. It has to be uneven. 33. It's gonna be about the same. And I'm expecting this to, as we move from one chunk to the next, it's gonna lag. Yeah. But this is already smoother because we're not going into a new chunk that often. This is already a big improvement. But as we move into the new chunk, this is so cool. As we move into the new chunk, it's a bad user experience because it lags. So this is where we need to break them up into their own meshes. So in package mesh, no, we would need to then need to store all of this data in chunks. But I still think it needs to be a global variable. So we can then do train if chunk x in terrain and chunk c in terrain. We don't need to do anything. We can just access it directly. Don't even need to check that. And chunk C is not in terrain. Not in terrain. Chunk X. Then we do terrain. Chunk X equals chunk C equals I wonder if that's even legal syntax. Can I do that? Right. Let's add that back temporarily. So the plan is then to break up the terrain into the chunks, like the terrain data structure into the chunks, and then store like the vertex data, color data, normals data per chunk, and then have an array mesh connected to each. Something like that. Did I not save it? Seems to be valid. And so also else if Is it elif in GDScript? Yeah. Chunk X in terrain. So if that is not, I think this is actually what this condition should give us, at least initially now, but when nothing is added. If X is not there, we need to add it. Dot add. How was that again? Here I'm doing something like that. Oh yeah, if X is not there, we just do X like that. Equals, and then we can just put the C. Yeah. Terrain, chunk, X equals. Chunk C. It's a copy pasting of code. Var chunk store data structure. Chunk data structure equals, and then we just give it a chunk data. I wonder if it does deep copy or not here. Guess we'll find out. No. Chunk data structure. Cool. And then we do terrain dot, no, terrain we could probably just replace, this is what we want to replace terrain with. Terrain dot dot chunk X, chunk C, vertices. Yes. And so package mesh is not gonna work as it looks now, because it's just gonna be empty. Yeah, so it's not gonna do anything. So we should tell it where to look. Chunk X, chunk C. Am I using this somewhere else? No. Am I not even using it in the player? No, I'm not. Good. And here again, what do I have on clipboard? Yes, perfect. We tell it to look at the terrain structure or terrain chunk data structure. One problematic thing here is that the array mesh is a global variable right now. Probably want to store it somewhere else. Maybe in the terrain? Together with the vertices, colors, and normals? Yeah, let's try that. Terrain. Array mesh equals new. No, wait. It has to be dot array mesh. Because that's the name of it. And there should probably be a mesh data tool for every everyone. These functions are becoming a bit monstrous. It's like, what, 199 to 225? No, it's not. It's not the worst, but it's not great. It's like 200, no, it's like 26 lines for a function. But okay, MDT should be like this. Create from surface, array mesh. Mesh instance. Is that also a global one? Yeah. Where do I Oh, I don't instantiate that up here. This looks ugly. Is this necessary? Or can we just do things locally here instead? Like this. Just use a var. Mesh material, vertex color, mesh instance. This is not needed anymore. Terraforming. This is going to be like the third time I solve terraforming. Terraforming with chunks is going to require some new solution. I don't know, let's remove the name. We're not using it anymore. I don't think we can queue free and just delete them all every time we create a new chunk. No, that's not gonna work. Yes, it will. Yeah. What do you mean, Sleepy? Guess it doesn't want to find it. Yeah, it's gonna require a new solution. That's gonna be interesting to solve. Like as I talked about in the beginning of the stream, there will be edge cases, pun intended, where you're like terraforming something on the edge. Then there will be one vertex on the like left side, and there will be one on the right side mesh. They will be like in different data structures altogether, but they need to be linked somehow through a hash map or some similar data structure as I have now. But yeah, there will be a few of those things. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it... Yeah, let's see how problematic it is. Hopefully we have some experience now, so it will be easier to solve than the first time. Add child mesh instance. If this works on the first try, that's great. Let's see. So before I play this, what did we actually do now? So package mesh on every run when we create a chunk. We package a mesh for that chunk specifically. So we're creating an array mesh for that chunk. We're creating a mesh data tool for that chunk. Everything in the terrain, in the location, like in that dictionary and the location of that chunk. And then we package it and add it to the tree. I mean, I think it should work. No. Did not. Some errors. static bodies. Null index p surface equals 0. It's out of bounds. It's in the Discord. Oh, you could create a thread. Nice. Cool. Trying to access this function parameter. Origin. Oh, okay. So this is probably because you don't have a value for noise here. So it looks like it actually accesses the function, but you still need to provide it with a noise value, because in this code it doesn't know what the noise value is. But if you would hard code and like give it a number here, it would probably work. So yeah, it looks like it can access the function. Let's try something just for debugging purposes. Let's try to print this just to see what it contains now. Oh, output overflow. Can we print the array mesh? Yeah. So there is an array mesh there. What about mesh instance? So what does the remote look like? World generator, terrain. So there are meshes here. Why do I not see them? So give it a function or give a parameter, like a variable. Yeah, exactly. So maybe, I'm not sure what you're trying to do here, to be honest. But to call this function, like, yeah, all you're doing here is you're calling a function and you're providing a parameter to that function. But here, you haven't, like, you're trying to use a variable that you haven't defined. Should I send the code? Sure, I mean, you can add it in this thread and we can see if we can help you when we have some time to look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So mesh material. So what's wrong here? Why is it not working? They don't have... Oh... They're missing a lot of stuff, right? Like if I would... Let's try to save this as a scene. Test... Mesh instance... And I bring it out here. Maybe I just double click it. It has nothing. It doesn't have a mesh. Ah, there it is. That's the problem. I think. That's at least one problem. Just scanning for any other similar mistakes. Maybe that solved it. Yes. Perfect. It's not that laggy. It's pretty cool. It's, oops, invalid get index. Okay, yeah, so that's something that's gonna break for sure. As we talked about, the terraforming. All right, so I'm having a quick look here. Let me spend like 1 minute here and see what you're trying to do. Plane, player. Add tool. World gen. What is that? If update. I've never used that. What's your programming experience like? Because you're... Yeah, here you have noise. Do you get noise somewhere? Because you're not really creating any... You're not using... Okay, here you're generating some noise. Oh, you're new to programming. That's cool. That's cool. Cool, man. Thank you, Jet, for always nice to hang out. Have a good one. Take care. Like half a year. Okay. So yeah, I think like what I usually do is I'm trying to understand, or like I'm trying to simulate in my head how the code is going to be executed. So this is something that extends mesh. I guess this is your mesh. Generate mesh position color. Okay, okay. So I think it's so I think what's going on here is you want to do the generate mesh on ready and on process. But then you have the position and you want to send a color. But you can get the color based on the position. You can get the noise value based on the position. But you also don't have a position, right? You would need to get that position value from somewhere. Why do you want to make it into two different files? I think you could probably keep it in one file, to be honest. But just instead of doing cubes here, you're generating a mesh plane or something. I would say like try to... I don't think I want to solve it for you. I think that's not going to teach you much. But like try to think about what each thing here is doing. Like if you get stuck, what's going on, try to break it down and figure out the execution. That's the advice I would give you. And like solve the smaller problems, like break it down into smaller problems and try to solve them. And that's also easier when you're asking for help than like to have like a small problem that is very isolated to ask for help, rather than like a huge code and it's like, what's going on? I think you're gonna notice that that's easier for you. Right, so this actually works now. No, so let's put this as done. introduce chunks. This was a big performance improvement already. And fix terraforming for chunks. Refactor the chunk code to be cleaner. Try to break. I'm just writing this here so that anyone can see in the future as well. If you can't get it to work, break it down further, smaller parts. Like I would probably say this is the downside with tutorials, that you might copy some code and just try to get it to work. But then if you don't properly understand what's going on, it's very hard for you to like build on it like you're trying to do now, which I think is a very good thing. I think it's good. And it's interesting that you're trying to keep expanding on what you learned. But I think when following tutorials, like try to really understand what's going on as far as that's possible. I like try to do some small variations on it. Like usually when I'm watching tutorials, which I do, it could be that I start watching something like, okay, how did Sebastian League, which is a big YouTuber on like procedural generation and so on, like how did he solve chunks? Then I start watching and I see some idea of like how he did it. I could pause it like just 1/3 of the video, like 1/3 into the video, because then I have enough information to like try something. And then I try to build my own variation based on my understanding. And then if I get stuck, I watch a bit more of the video. And at the end of the day, like you want to, I just try to build my own thing. And the tutorial is more there to like teach them the mechanics or like give some inspiration for how to solve possible ways to solve a problem. Fix terraforming for chunks. Okay, cool. So I think I'm gonna stop streaming in a bit now. I'm just gonna trying to get into this habit, like at the end of this every session, clean up the board, what should be done next session. So yeah, thank you, Sleepy. Thank you. So fix terraforming for chunks. Refactor the chunk code. I don't know, I'll put this back into backlog, separate out height map. I'm just going to translate this to English. Could be a component that creates a height map that is then used by world generator to create the world based on it, on that data. This is a bad, very unclear, it's like ill-defined, and I don't really know if I want to do this anymore. I'll put it at the back of the backlog for now. And if I, after like 2-3 times, still feel the same, I'll probably move it out here among the other remnants, like design a beautiful landscape, which is also not a very, it's very abstract. It's not very concrete what's required here. Add support for level of detail variability. I'm not sure if I need that. Ooh, something we need on the chunks. Add code to inactivate chunk that moves out of the scope. Let's do that first. That's going to be an interesting thing to add. Refactor code to be cleaner. I think we can remove that. Cool, all right. This is a good list of goals for the next session. Last thing is I'm just gonna push this to git status. Generator git commit chunk generation. But this is cool. It's a big improvement. Big performance improvement already. Cool, all right. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. It's a great session. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.